Americans have seen a lot of chaos in 2025. You got natural disasters, global conflicts, and political madness. But I ask people what they're really concerned about. It's not what's on the front page. It's the cost of living. But here's the twist. This isn't just inflation. It's a total collapse of what it means to be in the working class. And the worst part is, most people don't even realize how fast it's accelerating until it's too late. So in this video here, I'm going to show you what's happening beneath the hood and how it's accelerating faster than a lot of people anticipate. Because once you see the full picture, you'll understand why the next phase is far more dangerous than what we're already living through right now. And that is worth talking about. All right, so I want to take a minute, share some thoughts in reference to just an interesting survey that came out and how it really caught me by surprise because I didn't anticipate the numbers to be as high as they were. So in this video here, I'm going to shine more light on it and give my 2 cents on it. But more importantly, not trying to spread more fear, doom, and gloom, but just being realistic as to what the pulse is like in the main street for the average Joe and Jane and what they're experiencing right now within the confines of their household. Because there's two different narratives. There's a narrative coming out of the mainstream news that the economy is great, everything is fine, inflation is down, people are earning more money, but then there's what's reality. And it's graphs like this and stats like this to let us know that the reality is much different than what we're being sold. So as always, if you guys enjoy these little short, quick takes, definitely hit that thumbs up button. Drop a comment down below. Let me know your thoughts. Let me know what else might be worth adding to this list. And then if you're new, make sure you subscribe so you never miss a quick take when I put it out. But more importantly, take this, share so more people can get an alternative perspective as to what's really going on. But the very first point is the fact that right now, 67% of U.S. workers live paycheck to paycheck. And that's not a talking point. That's a survival statistic. And according to Statistica, the cost of living is the #1 issue Americans are worried about by a large margin. So it's not AI, it's not the war, it's not climate, it's survival day to day. And so what this signals to me is the fact that daily life is unraveling for a lot of people. And so if you scroll through TikTok or YouTube shorts, and you'll even see it there, people breaking down over rent issues. Grocery hauls that used to cost $70 now cost over $150. You got nurses, truckers, and teachers all asking what's becoming a common question: how am I supposed to make this work? So it's not just sad, it's systemic. And so nearly half of Americans worry about debt every single day. So think about that for a second. Worried about food, bills, kids every single day just to stand still. And it's not just financial pressure, it's psychological warfare, which will eventually lead to a mental breakdown for some. And so you got 54% said that they feel ashamed about their debt. Then you got 50% that avoid their bank accounts. And then 98% owe something, whether it be credit cards, car loans, student debts, mortgages, the list goes on and on. So people aren't lazy, they're just trapped. And then again, I'm sure this is nothing new for the majority of you. And while most people are fighting to survive, it's the second point which compounds the problem on top of other problems that people have. And that's the fact that the job market is quietly collapsing. And so you got mass layoffs that used to make the headlines. Now they're just background noise. But here's a stat you probably haven't heard. You got 17 trucking companies went bankrupt in Q2 of this year alone. So that's not just bad news for drivers. It's a blinking red light for the whole economy. And the question is, why? Because trucking is the bloodstream of the economy. So if freight movement is down 25%, it means demand is drying up fast. And it's not just trucking. You got retailers bleeding out too. You got the largest shopping mall in San Francisco, amongst others, is now down to very few stores left open to where it's about 93% empty. And that building I'm referring to, amongst many others, are buildings that once brought in over $1 billion in value. Now they're worth like 195 million or so, and that's steadily dropping. And that is another issue, which is the commercial real estate crisis that we're experiencing. But that's just one of many other kinks in the chain that I can talk about. But where it's also hitting is the fact that it's not just the stores. You got the real estate dominoes that are starting to fall as well. So you got commercial mortgages are going bad, office buildings are empty, banks are sweating, and now residential is starting to crack. And so I was reading a story not long ago that talked about Killeen, Texas. There was a condo which price dropped 40% from its peak, giving up the entire COVID era boom and then some. And it's starting to spread. You got Phoenix, Orlando, more cities are being added to the list every month. And I'm sure that sounds familiar, but it should, because this is 2008 all over again, but with very few lifeboats. Because at the end of the day, this isn't just a U.S. problem. And so you think this is just America. You got Germany, which I haven't covered in some time now, but they're the backbone of the European economy, and they're tanking. Their engineering sector now expects a 5% drop in production this year. So that's catastrophic for a developed nation. You got their GDP is shrinking, you got recession signals everywhere, and the global supply chains are more brittle now than at the time of COVID. So what does all this mean? So if the U.S. or Europe slips just a little further, we tip into a global crisis mode, and I mean fast. And so that means trade slows, credit locks up, energy prices spike, and the cost of living crisis that I'm talking about in this video here that people are already feeling becomes something darker, more like a survival crisis. And so at the end of the day, this is what you're really seeing. because each one is starting to stack up on top of the next one. We got 67% of Americans living paycheck to paycheck. We got mass debt stress and shame to go along with it. We got job losses in logistics and retail. We got commercial, residential, real estate declines. Then you got global economic engines failing to restart. So this isn't normal. This isn't just a rough patch. This is a collapse of the system that promised safety and stability in exchange for compliance. And that compliance I'm referring to is the fact that you give us your best years up front and you get to enjoy those remaining years after you punch out the clock for the last time. And that's, of course, retirement. And as a side note, let me remind you, there's another story I'm sure you haven't heard about. And it's the idea that right now they're floating the idea of increasing the age of retirement up to 70 years old. That basically means they're going to kick the can further because they can't pay Social Security because it's more than likely going to be bankrupt. And what better way to default on the people again other than to kick the can down the line, hoping that a good chunk of the people end up dying off. So last, what comes next? I'm sure you're wondering. So the question isn't if the crisis escalates, it's more so what it breaks next and when. So some things worth considering is the fact that will your job be safe in 6 months, or can your landlord raise your rent again? And then what happens when the next wave of layoff hit? And the question that a lot of people may not want to consider is that how long can you live on credit cards if that's all you have? And so, of course, outside of just sharing this information, you don't need to be paranoid. You just have to pay attention and realize that everything isn't hunky-dory. And when you hear any person in a suit on TV talk about how great things are, you need to be willing to call them out on the carpet for what's happening, which is they're lying straight to your face. But most people won't prepare by all these alarms that's sounding right now. They'll wait for the bailout that usually never comes until it's too late. But because you're watching this, I'm sure you're more than aware of what's really taking place. And you've been taking small steps prior to this video here to minimize your risk to the system, as well as to diversify out of the legacy system as it unwinds, while also stacking your weight, your calories, your ammunition, and anything else that you might need for a prolonged period of time, or for security's sake, or just for a peace of mind to sleep on your pillow at night. And ultimately, if you can, we're past the point of the time to try to reduce your debt, time to build some skills, time to get clear-eyed about what's really happening here. Because if 2025 has shown us anything, it's that the old American dream is clearly dead. But that doesn't mean you have to go down with it. So once again, just taking a minute, sharing my thoughts as to what the statistics are showing us about Main Street. And of course, me trying to sound the alarm, wake up as many people as possible to get them to question everything, believe nothing, and work on some type of game plan for yourself. Because as the economy continues to unwind, a desperate government will lead to implementing disastrous policies, which will create even more devastation amongst the populace. And so as always, if you enjoyed this, hit that thumbs up. And I don't want to just leave you with all these problems without recommending some possible suggestions on how to diversify. And of course, you want to find out more, scroll down to the description of this video here, and you'll find some possible strategies on how to protect and preserve everything you work hard for. And then more importantly, your need to diversify your income streams and have as many irons in the pot as you can, because there's no telling where things will end up a year or two from now. But anyway, just taking a minute, sharing 2 cents. Curious to hear what you think. Thumbs up, subscribe, drop a comment. Catch you guys later.